Welcome back to another video here on the channel. In this one we talk about stablecoins, which ones exist and how do they differentiate, and also what is the good, the bad and maybe the ugly. In case you are interested in learning even more about stablecoins, there is a link to a free 136-page long stablecoin report by the Block Research, which was released in March this year and goes much more into detail than what I cover here. Before we get started, nothing in this video is financial advice. I am not a financial advisor, so this is for educational purposes only, like all of my other videos as well. Now let's get started with the good. Stablecoins enable fast and secure transfer of digital stable currency, and instead of banks doing the settlement, we use blockchains. The popular stablecoins USDC, TUSD and GUSD are audited regularly to make sure that these coins are backed by the underlying assets like the US dollar or gold. Decentralized stablecoins like DAI can even be verified through the blockchain, so no audit by an agency is necessary. Many people around the world can't access better currencies like the US dollar and live under high inflation. They seek a more stable currency. With stablecoins, they can access a digital currency that is backed by the US dollar, for example, and therefore experience less inflation and volatility. Because of this lack of volatility, stablecoins are also great for recurring payments. Bitcoin only works for recurring payments when everyone sees it as a unit of account and thinks about their net worth in BTC or Satoshi terms and not in USD terms. As with fiat currency, stablecoins are better at some of the payments and medium of exchange use cases compared to Bitcoin at its current adoption. This is true at least for a short time horizon, because they are not as volatile and therefore better for daily use. But they are not as good on a long time horizon, because fiat money devalues, which is part of Bitcoin's value proposition to not devalue over time. So stable is not necessarily the best word to describe stablecoins or fiat currencies, as they are forever depreciating. On a longer time horizon, stablecoins are not really stable, as they use value, so holding them for a long time is not the best idea. Which brings us to the bad. Almost all stablecoins like Tether, USDC, etc. are issued by a central party, which is always a security risk. It involves KYC and thereby identification. This centralization and lack of privacy also means that the company who issues the stablecoin can freeze funds of certain individuals or blacklist addresses. All in all, stablecoins are not censorship resistant. They are also not really decentralized and not open. This can also be seen as a positive, because illicit activities can be spotted more easily, but in general, censorship resistant is what makes Bitcoin so great. Stablecoin issuers are required to maintain rigid AML and KYC onboarding processes, use on-chain monitoring services for possible violations to create suspicious activity reports, and cooperate with law enforcement agencies when needed. Centralization also always means that trust is involved, which is exactly what Bitcoin tries to get rid of. You need to trust the creator of the coin that they have sufficient reserves, that the audit is legit, or in some cases like Tether, that the disclosure of the reserves is correct. More on that later. However, there are some stablecoins that are more decentralized, like DAI for example, which would circumvent the previously mentioned problems. DAI is not backed by fiat, but instead by smart contracts, which are backed by collateralized crypto debt. Many stablecoins are ERC20 tokens, which is great for smart contract functionalities and also for fast clearance, but it means you are exposed to Ethereum's transaction fees, which go through the roof at times. Micropayments are certainly not an option. But some stablecoins like USDC give you the option to use Solana and other utility protocols that have lower fees. Stablecoins have somewhat grown exponentially and are used by traders. They account for 20% of total assets under management of prime money market funds. Which is why the Federal Reserve sees a risk that if people suddenly leave these stablecoins, it would be hurtful to the financial stability. The Fed today for the first time explicitly called out Tether by name as a risk to financial stability, namely to short-term credit markets. I do worry that the stablecoin market that is currently pretty much unregulated as it grows and becomes a more important sector of our economy, that we need to take seriously what happens when people run from these type of instruments very quickly. And I think here's a good point where we can move from the bad to the ugly. Tether, since first issued in 2014, has never been audited and is the third largest cryptocurrency behind Bitcoin and Ethereum, with the highest daily trading volume by far. So it's not only by far the biggest stablecoin, it's top 3 of all cryptocurrencies. And it never had an audit. If Tether turns out to be a fraud by not having sufficient reserves and it implodes, the market would plunge into a bear market and many people would lose trust in Bitcoin as well, because they overgeneralize that all cryptos are the same. Tether is a fraud must mean Bitcoin is a fraud as well. This would not mean the end for Bitcoin though. It would crash hard, for sure, but fundamentally nothing changes. Bitcoin would still be the same, creating a new block every 10 minutes, being decentralized, having no one in control of the money supply, and so on. In May 2021, Tether has disclosed its reserve portfolio. There was no independent review though, and it's not clear who the borrowers of the loans are, and the ratings of the commercial papers to turn them into cash are also unknown. All in all, Tether has always seemed shady. They say they've got nothing to hide, and yet they hide pretty much everything for the longest time. But don't get me wrong, I don't say Tether is a fraud. There is no proof for that. However, there also isn't a proof that it isn't a fraud. So we will see how things turn out in the future. Looking ahead, there will be further players in the sphere of digital stable currencies that will enter soon, and they are called central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs for short. This is a whole new subject that involves many different pros and cons. If you want a video on the chances and risks of a digital dollar or digital euro and what this introduction, which is certain to come, would mean for existing stablecoins, let me know in the comments. I also can't tell you which stablecoin you should use. They all have different upsides and downsides. Tether has a lot of liquidity, but not really a lot of transparency, to name just one example. I actually don't use any of them because I'm not a trader, and I also don't have the need to accept or send a stable digital currency. That's it for this video. I hope you learned something. I would appreciate it if you leave a like and subscribe to the channel for further content, and then I see you next time.